Welcome to Marin Voices and Views. With Lawrence A. Strick, I'm Peter B. Collins. In our second segment, in a few minutes, we'll talk with local author Toni Piccinini about her new book that supports parents during a child's final year of high school. So that makes this our Back to School special. Larry?
First, Peter, it's my honor to welcome back Marin County Superintendent of Schools, Mary Jane Burke.
Great.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Good. Mary Jane is in her 5th term as superintendent of the county school system. She started off as a volunteer mom. She's been a principal. She's been working on top of the ladder up there since 1994. And she always has her pulse on what's happening here in Marin County and its school system. Schools are back. We're back in session. Enrollment's up 5%.
Right.
Are we ready? Do we have the teacher, the books? Is everything in gear?
I would say we're ready to go. At this point, everybody is just thrilled to have the students back into our schools, and it provides a great level of excitement, energy, and inspiration for everybody who works in the schools.
The infrastructure is in place to accommodate the amount of kids we have?
I would say the infrastructure is in place, but there are definitely some places where things are tight, and so districts have really had to scramble given the increased enrollment, some of it unexpected actually. And so we've seen issues like a program that would have been a morning-only program that they're putting in like an AM and a PM session to be able to accommodate, and working with other districts who has an extra portable, that kind of thing. So there have definitely been some issues, but they've all been solved. And one of the things that's also happening is that we broke ground just last weekend on the brand new school that'll be built in Larkspur District that'll open in about 365 days.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's great.
And this expanded student population, is it people moving into the county? Is it people leaving private schools? Where are the students coming from?
Yeah, I think it's a combination, but if we were going to pick one factor, we're seeing a turnover in what had been homes in our community where the children had already grown up. There were 2 people living in the home, and what's happened is those are turning over to new families that are moving in with 1, 2, 3 children that are coming into our schools. But I also think that people take a good look at where they're going to live. If you have children, you care deeply about the schools and whether or not the schools are going to be able to meet the needs of your kids. And people actually move to Marin County. When you talk to the realtors, they'll say, we're moving because we're going to engage in the public schools in this community. So I think that's a tribute to everybody.
So talk a little bit about some of the shifts in curriculum. There's a new state set of standards called Common Core.
Yes.
What does that mean, and how is it different from what we've been doing?
Sure. Well, I think the simple way to frame it is that the Common Core state standards, which are affecting many places across the country, are identifying that it's more important to go deep into particular areas as opposed to give children just enough information that they don't really know what they would need to know to apply it. And so what we're seeing is that the students will be involved in activities that are going to put them in a position to really start thinking. In other words, once they get into an assessment of their knowledge, there'll be situations that they'll be in where they really have to apply their knowledge. So it won't just be yes or no or fill out a ABC, but rather, instead of, for example, saying, pick the verb in this sentence, let's just say, they'll say what verb could fit in that sentence. And the verb could be, hopping, jumping, running, driving, all kinds of things. So it's to really engage kids. So I think that the future is going to hold something that'll be really good for the students, because if they are able to think, be creative, communicate, collaborate, they're going to be successful adults. If they can just fill in a bubble, we know that that won't be enough.
Are these changes coming down from programs that we all heard of, like No Child Left Behind or Race to the Top, or are these new and innovative California type programs?
These are definitely across the country, right? Most of the states have adopted the Common Core state standards. But what we've seen is that if you rely on assessments that are low level, that you really are not measuring whether or not you're truly educating a student. So it's just not good enough to get the right answer. We need to know that you knew how to think about how you got to that answer.
So it sounds like you want to make the children less of a parrot, more
Exactly.
of a thinker.
Right, exactly. And in the end, especially given technology, its infusion in our lives, that we know we can actually go online and find the answer to questions. So content, to the particular answer, is not as important as how are we going to use that data together to apply it in a way that's going to make the world a better place, let's say. So it's wonderful. I mean, we are on the road to something that will make a real difference, because our job is to prepare kids for whatever path they might be ultimately going on, but they've got to be college career ready. If they can't think, if they are not communicating well, if they don't collaborate with others, if they aren't creative, they're just not going to make it.
Mary Jane, critics of the federal programs say that they promote a teach-to-the-test mentality, which downplays critical thinking and creative learning. Is that fair, in your view, a fair criticism? And are we able to make adaptations, particularly at the county or at the district level, to offset some of the weaknesses of the federal programs?
The answer is yes, we can make modifications, adaptations, and great teachers, no matter what the rules have been, are always teachers that are fully engaging kids in their learning, and they're not just teaching to the test. So I think that Marin County is one of the more innovative places that you can take a look at what's happening in our schools across the county. You can see some of the cutting edge effort that's being shared across our community on behalf of kids and other teachers. So that's something we can be very proud of. Do we need to do more of that? Absolutely. So that's an area, if you said, so what are you working on? What are you really working on? And I would say what we're doing is looking to the most innovative that we can see in our community and making sure that all have access. It could be the flipped learning techniques. There's many different techniques. We have a whole speaker series that started last year, will continue this year, that brings in cutting edge people to talk about what it looks like when students are truly engaged and absolutely thinking about what it is they're learning and applying it to real life. Those people have really begun to, shall I say, disrupt the way we think about school. And people come and listen to these speakers and they think, I want that for my child, right? And so it's really good. And so we have a whole series, so if anybody wants to check that out, it's on the county office website starting September 17th.
Let's go from cutting
Yes.
edge to talking about penmanship,
Okay, yes.
which is still important.
Right.
I think there's a trend, or you hear about this trend, to dismiss cursive writing, to
Right.
get rid of cursive writing. California seems to be resisting that trend.
Right.
Is that something that's good or bad? And since kids need to type so much, should we be teaching typing younger and pulling back from cursive, or is there room for both?
Yeah. Well, I think.
Yeah.
Yes,
You've heard
I've heard it.
Tell them.
Let me say this. I think that cursive writing or penmanship in general, I think it's important. I mean, I do actually think that's important, and it actually is something that helps young children develop their fine motor skills, which we know that's very important, right? That's one of the things that we need to be successful in life. So I'm very supportive of that. But I also know that, as people are, and young people are using keyboards as they're texting. I mean, if you look at some of the young people in our community, they're texting with their two thumbs, etc., right, quite efficiently, that I do believe there's a place for the written language and the ability to express your appreciation and thanks to someone using a thank you note. And I do think down the road, what becomes more important are those things that are more interrelational, like a handwritten note, like sitting in a meeting with someone and not having technology, not having everybody on their iPhone, on their iPad, but actually relating to one another. So as we go forward, I believe that those are the skills that will be the most important: the ability to relate, interact, communicate, argue a point, change people's minds, write a thank you note. So I believe the interpersonal interactions are ultimately going to be more important.
Now, you mentioned the kids with talented thumbs,
Yes.
but when it comes to using a QWERTY keyboard,
Right.
they hunt and peck. And I blame and credit my mother. She sent me to typing school. I think it was summer
Right.
between 7th and 8th grade. And I really appreciate that because I can do 150, 170 words a minute. And the hunt and peckers are running way behind. So don't you think typing is a skill that should be required?
I would say we call it keyboarding now,
Yeah.
and we'll start with that. But I would
Back to
say
class.
most of the students.
Keyboard's not a verb.
Yeah, right, very good. Most of the students have some sort of a keyboarding class somewhere in their, in their academic or, schedule of work.
Yeah.
The one thing, though, I would tell you is that the hunting and pecking can actually provide opportunity for your mind to catch up with what it is you're trying to express. So I'm just going to say sometimes the typing, right, can be so fast and so rote that people are not even, right, they could be just typing something that they're copying as opposed to actually composing something. So I'll just say that's a thought, though. That's
It's a thought.
That's a way to look at it, right? That's a way to look at it.
I have a prop.
Yes.
Mary Jane, I recently interviewed the author of this book. It's a parody, and I want to credit Beverly Slapin of Berkeley. She wrote it because there is an equivalent called Basic Skills Native Americans Workbook.
Okay.
And it is riddled with compressed histories that are inaccurate and some things that are frankly racist. So this is her pushback on that. And I just raise it to ask if you're satisfied with the quality of the textbooks that we're currently using in Marin Public Schools.
Well, in general, the textbooks that we're using go through a variety of steps at the state level to actually look for the issues, right, that you're framing there. The future, though, we're not really going to have textbooks. Most of what we'll be doing is online. One of our schools, right now, when school opens, I think today in the Reed District, they'll be having, all of their work will be online, so they will no longer be using textbooks. And what that does then is provides for opportunity to change things in real time.
Lightens the load on those backpacks.
Exactly.
too.
That's exactly right. We're making backpacks with rollers, right? So I would say that, as we look down the road, all of the bookmakers, if you will, are all looking at their online strategies, and so are we.
Then teaching materials. Are
Right.
you confident in the content?
I would say yes. I would say I'm confident in the content, but if we stop at the content of any book or online book, we're not doing our job. Back to, we need to be thinking. I mean, when you think of what's available to young people in terms of sources of information, and part of what we need to help our students understand and be able to do is to figure out what's accurate in terms of the data that they're provided. And if they know how to do that, they'll do a better job in listening to the media, what they read, and so on. And that's all part of the critical thinking strategy.
Last year you joined us and we talked about the state budget, and despite the fact that there have been cutback after cutback after cutback, we weren't doing that bad here in Marin. How's it looking this year?
I would say things are hopefully stabilizing, and that's what I would say we will be seeing as we move into this year and the next couple of years. With the passage of Prop 30, we essentially have a governor who said, I will essentially deal with the overall state deficit so that we don't tell you here's $1 and then only give you 50 cents. And I will continue to do my part to move back to where we were in 07-08. Now that's going to be many years, by the way. To get back to where we were in 2007, 2008 is a 7-year issue for schools. So the bottom.
And does that mean getting back to where we were in 07, 08, getting back to the type of programs that were available and the amount of teachers, or does it mean something else?
It means, to me, it means the money that will be available. We don't want to go back to the programs, the exact programs that we had in 07, 08. Things are definitely changing, as they should be in all fields, including education. But what we know is that in order to keep up that we have to have the resources to be able to do so. The thing about Marin County that makes it special and very different than I would say probably anywhere else in the state is this is a community that values public education. They're willing to support it in a variety of ways, whether it's through parcel taxes, the actual time they give, their community, their school foundation. So we are a community that has very high expectations of the public schools, but when we actually perform, right, which we can do only in a community that's fully engaged. You can't have great schools in a community that doesn't care about your schools, but this is a community that is willing to support public schools, and they understand that if you have great schools, that actually affects the economic vibrancy of the entire community.
Briefly, Mary Jane, how do you rate Marin schools for special needs students? And fundamentally, does every student have the IEP, the individual education plan that they deserve?
Okay, I'm a special ed teacher by background. The County Office of Education provides much of the special education in our community. I rate our special education programs some of the best that you could find in the country. People move to Marin County for that purpose. We provide innovative programs that are cutting edge. We develop programs that other people may rely on consultants to provide. As one example, we have a technology center that if you had a child that you wanted to try out some particular technology, you can go, that you can loan, they will loan out to you some equipment so that you don't spend money on something you might not need. We've provided programs for infants, for preschool students, for students on the spectrum, kids with ED. I would say we have great special education programs. I feel I'm quite proud of what we've done, but that's a reflection of a community that cares about all kids. In other words, this is a community that gets it, what it means to be a public school. Every kid, it doesn't matter what language you speak, what your abilities are, what your disabilities might be, what your socioeconomic state, we open the doors and say, welcome, it's the public schools.
Mary Jane Burke, Marin County's Superintendent of Public Schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marin author Toni Piccinini joins us now. Her new book, released this month by Seal Press, is The Goodbye Year, Wisdom and Culinary Therapy to Survive Your Child's Senior Year of High School and Reclaim the You of You. I've been fighting subtitle creep, Toni, can you tell?
I think so. I know. This subtitle was bounced around quite a bit. As you know, with publishing, that's what they've landed on, and I'm all in.
Well, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Now, you've been through a child's senior year not once, not twice, but 3 times.
That's right.
So if there's one single bit of wisdom that you can share from that, what would that be?
You know, Peter, I think a big part of the senior year, the emphasis is on the future. It's all about opening those pearly gates to college admittance next year. And for a mom, and I guess for some dads too, it's very nostalgic, and you really find yourself transported to the past. You recognize everything's the last time. The last Columbus Day you're going to spend together. And I think if there's any advice that I could give is to just try and savor the moment, what's happening during the senior year. Because your child, sometimes it might seem like they're acting like a 2-year-old, but really they are making strides. They are getting ready to leave the nest.
And the book is about your feelings a lot. And some of those are feelings of fear or loss or the unknown or maybe a reduction in relevance?
I think that, and I speak for, my posse of girlfriends and maybe even the band of a generation of women. We really dove into this motherhood, and I think that it was easy. We sort of got a little lost. And I think when your child starts senior year and you recognize that this is coming to an end, and the next question you have to say is, well, who am I now?
So there's a transition process that your child's going through, you're going through. Your book talks about that as it applies to you and has a bunch of recipes. So tell us, how does making great gnocchi prepare you for this transition?
Well, because then at the end of the day, you'll have some gnocchi in your freezer. So when you're depressed, you can just boil that up and put it together with a little bolognese. What was so great about it for me and why the recipes, I've opened a top 100 San Francisco restaurant, Mescalanza, and when my daughter, my oldest, was starting her senior year, I was asked if I would like to teach some cooking classes. And I thought, well, sure, I'll just do that, and I won't even notice that my world is really having a big shift. So making gnocchi, one of the things about that is it's a big production, and when you don't want to make 4 potatoes of it, you do a big deal, and it's nice to get some helpers. And what I found was getting together with the women in my cooking classes, it was very therapeutic and cathartic to just be together.
Toni, your book is pretty personal. It's kind of in a diary format. And it seems to be written mostly from your female perspective. Do you expect dads to read it? And are you working on a sequel for us, the guys?
I love that you would want to read a book about that. It's interesting. This is the interviews that I've had. This question has come up, which has been very surprising to me.
Well, you're here at Wayne's World. He's Garth. I'm Wayne.
I understand that.
Which one has hair?
I do believe that dads feel it too, and one of the chapters I talk about is the dorm drop-off, and a friend of mine who was a few years ahead of me on the parenting track said that her husband bawled the whole way from LA to San Francisco, and I do think that for dads too, it is it's the ending of a big chunk of your life.
Well, at minimum, it makes us feel old.
Yeah, well, there's that.
Some of us. But the college application process is really serious. It's serious for the mom, it's serious for the kid, the dad, it's an economic issue in the entire family. And it's also competitive and stressful for the kids. What advice do you have for moms on that process and the transition you're going to need in your house?
Well, that is a really big part of what goes on in the senior year that I think adds to the anxiety, and I feel that the moms feel that this is their job to get their child into the college of their choice. And I think just having a little faith that it is all going to work out, and to think that someone is going to launch the career of the rest of their life when they're 17 or 18 years old, I think we could maybe take a step back from that and say, perhaps it'll be a winding path, but they'll end up in the right place.
Now, Toni, in the book, you confess to being, and quote here, a controlling boss C otter mom. Now, I'm familiar with the soccer mom and the hockey mom, but the sea otter mom is new to me. So please explain, and is there a cure?
Well, I was referring to what happened when I had children. I come from an Italian immigrant family, and having babies and having little children that would grow up just seemed like the most natural thing in the world to me. But around me, my peers, we were doing the same things, loving our children, but they were really anxious and worried about things. And also the sort of the tiger mom started taking hold of a lot of my peers, getting them signed up for this and that. And for me, I was just, let's go throw a baseball, let's have a good time. But it hit me when my daughter was a senior that then I was concerned that perhaps her resume wasn't going to stack up against the resumes of her peers whose mothers had done the right things and not said, let's just go to the beach.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mike Riera is a guy who's written books about parenting. He's the head of school at a private academy in the East Bay. And he put forward the idea that when our kids are young, we're their manager. And at a certain point, and it's different with each child, we shift to becoming a consultant. And a lot of parents don't really catch that until the reality sets in that they're no longer running their kid's life. So how do you help parents through your book here identify the right time to move from manager to consultant?
I think a big part of that is allowing the child to say child when we have these big 6'2", 17-year-olds, but
shoes this big.
Exactly. Allowing them to make a mistake. I found that there was, from the grade school experience on, if the child left their homework at home, we would run, I was guilty, I would take it down to the school because I didn't want them to be, deducted for something. And I think that by the time senior year comes along, we have to allow the child to own their life, their experience, and what's going on.
You
And
didn't get the memo from
Yeah.
Marin Parents Central? We don't allow our kids to fail. We cover up their mistakes.
I know. It is, and I think, a great writer and psychologist, Madeline Levine, talks about that in Teaching Your Children for, I think it's called Authentic Success. And she does suggest that the more we do for them, the worse they are for it. And so senior year is a good time. Each month has a recipe as well as a to-do. And one of the to-dos speaks to playing the game, he's away at college. Because next year, he's going to have to make sure there's paper for the printer. He's going to have to make sure he got his books that he needs. So giving them opportunity to take care of those tasks that we moms sort of historically have done, and it's easier for us to do it. But I think it's a perfect opportunity to let your child go out to Staples himself.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Your book's going to be, it's out this month. It's going to be in the Bay Area bookstores. Can we get it all over? And how excited are you about that? And if I get this book and I take it, what do you want your reader to take away from it after she's done reading it or he's done reading it?
I think the main thing that I would like the reader to take away, and again, I of course, as a woman and a mom, thinking that would be my audience, is just that just to be easy on ourselves and to be easy on each other, because it is a very competitive playing field, and there is sort of a definition of motherhood success of the senior year as to what tier the child got into as far as college goes, and it just doesn't always work out right at that same time. So to just support each other and enjoy that senior year.
Local bookstores, online, probably at Amazon.
Yes.
Any other favorite place that people should grab your book?
Well, I really love independent bookstores. My book launch at Book Passage in Corte Madera, it's an amazing institution, and Powell's is available online and wherever fine books are sold.
And there's a website for the book too, thegoodbyeyear.com. Our thanks to Toni Piccinini. Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Larry.
Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.